Hello, everybody, and welcome to One World, One Blood Bowl number 56. Always helps if I can get the title out. 2024, a big year for Blood Bowl. Not just for Blood Bowl. I believe some pundits, a very wise pundit, declared it Blood Bowl's golden age, which no one's pushed back over, so I decided we've all accepted that, and I was right. It is Blood Bowl's golden age. So I thought, how better if we're going to celebrate what an incredible year for Blood Bowl 2024 has been, than invite on three lovely people for whom 2024 has been a personally incredible year in their Blood Bowl. So I'm very pleased that three people who can absolutely say that about their Blood Bowl have agreed to come on. So at the risk of having yet another episode with just the toxic elite of Blood Bowl, I am putting in front of you three seasoned winners with a huge amount of success in 2024 behind them. And we're going to talk about the year that has been, the year that is coming up, their Blood Bowl, my Blood Bowl, your Blood Bowl. We're going to talk about Blood Bowl. That's what we do here on One World, One Blood Bowl. However, we will try and avoid dice stories because they're just very, very dull. So, first of all, diagonally up from me, we have the lovely OlivierDuLac. Very, very popular when he came on the last show, not just because of his cat. It's incredibly toxic to have a cat when I'm talking because none of you are looking at me. For those
Hello
listening,
everyone.
Olivier is playing with a cat. Hello, Olivier, how are you?
I'm going great. And you?
Very good, thank you. Happy Winterval, whatever it is you celebrate this festive season. I hope it finds you well.
Yeah.
And is it fair to say that you would describe yourself as having had a successful year of Blood Bowl in 2024?
Yes, I think I was running after some team success, and it's come to Euroball win for the friends. So I was really happy to be a part of the team, and we have a really great year with a French team who was more about some friends, and it was a team success and a really good team moment and some training with my brother and all other close friends were really nice, and so it was a really good year in Blood Bowl in team.
Yeah, here's me always picking out OlivierDuLac. We should not forget Sam Dulac, of course, your brother, also incredibly successful on tabletop and on Blood Bowl in general, isn't he?
He is at maybe 10 meters on me, so no, not so long.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, wish him the best from me and say congratulations on his Blood Bowl, which I have noted is also taking him high and bringing enormous amounts of success. And so, just personally, you're talking there about, of course, the team success and France's Euro Bowl win. You didn't mention, personally, your Blood Bowl's been going all right as an individual as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's maybe because it's more than 2 years I'm number one on tabletop, and this year personally I have some success with vampires. I climb during sometimes at the first world place, but like I said, the individual Blood Bowl was a success 2 years ago, and now maybe I think I made two or three tournaments with the Scaven this year, so I didn't take a lot of risks for my first place, and I still get it, but it was not the most important point for me in the year.
So it wasn't it wasn't
So
it wasn't so much about the individual playing or even defending the NAF score. It was about some team competition this year. That was where your focus was, and
yeah,
trying some other races as well. I've noticed you on Wood Elves, on Vampires, just trying
absolutely.
trying some different things, having some fun elsewhere outside of Rats.
Yeah. I need to prove that I can play other things that my adorable right.
Well,
And sorry
that
all for my English.
no, no,
So
you
bad.
absolutely shouldn't. Your English is incredible. I mean, I am joined this evening by three people for whom English is not their native language. We should explain that. It is One World, One Blood Bowl. For those of you that can't hear, OlivierDuLac is, of course, a native speaker of Blood Bowl, but also, you may notice, of French, really. We're joined by Strider, who, of course, being from Switzerland, speaks largely money, but, of course, probably is fluent in German, French, English, Bulgarian, Belgian, Dutch. I mean, they speak everything there, don't they? They have about 8 languages naturally. And then, of course, we're joined by our Canadian friend Drakenspear, who would normally be communicating in a series of sort of barks, whistles, and coughs, which a sled dog would understand. But I believe they do also teach them to speak English or French in some parts of Canada, in case they do run into other humans in their bleak, icy existence. So if the English is a little fractured, more than normal, then that's because of the people we have on. Not as normal as if we have Dimmy G on, of course. It will be a higher standard of English than that. So yes, my long detour away from you, Olivier. So a year of incredible Blood Bowl, a year of trying other things. Did you feel that pressure that people are going, yes, he's NAF #1, but that's because he's on Rats?
Oh,
Because I was
not
saying that.
about the rats. Yes, not about the rats, but about the light roster. Agile roster, not heavy roster. When I play elf, scavens, people are afraid. But when I start to play chaos, undead, some big things, people are less afraid of me. So I'm trying to be able to play everything right, but it's not really easy.
So people do put you at that dodging, annoying, fast end of the scale, don't they? But clumping up with some strength 4 things and hitting them in the face is not what they expect from you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hey, we've all got areas to stretch, so it's interesting to hear that. Um, so that was your big year in 2024. As you said, a huge team success at the Euro Bowl for France. Strider, I believe you were there with Team Switzerland.
Yeah, we played the French actually in the round 5, and we had to move them down temporarily from their premier place to the second place because we actually were in first place after 4 rounds with
Wow.
Team Switzerland, which was a pretty great success. Not going to talk too much about the last 2 rounds and what happened, but yeah, it was overall still a great success. We came in top 10 with Switzerland, which is always a great achievement. Of course, if things have gone a little bit better, but you can always
Well, I'm
dream,
going to
right?
make up a story because I think it sounds as if it could be true. Where someone said to me at Eurobowl, realize the reason we have 8 people in the squad is to stop teams like Switzerland because they can only ever find 4 or 5 decent Blood Bowlers. Do you think that's the case, that some of these nations are limited by just? I mean, you do have 4 or 5
It is,
international quality
yeah,
players, but can you really find
yes,
8?
yeah. That's a pretty correct statement. I agree, right? That's where we struggle, right? So if you have 6 top players and then there's just maybe 2 who maybe gain half a point instead of a full point on average, it's hard to overcome against the top teams over 6 rounds, right? You can always beat any team for one game, right? If things go well, right? And we were amazing. So actually at the end of the day we had 3 people of our team being in the top 6 of the individual ranking with 10 points, right? Which is incredible. But yeah, of course, at the end, it doesn't matter at all, right? You need to win as a team. And so, yeah, but, overall, right, I would have totally signed the 10th place, or even being on the top spot after 4 rounds was great, right? And it's also
Yeah.
important, right? Because if you do well on the first day, right, it's very important for the for the evening, for the festivities, right?
Yes.
we
How
had
enjoyable
we
your
had
Saturday night is very predicated by how
exactly,
Saturday's
right.
gone on the Blood
So
Bowl.
we had this great experience in Malta where we had a very good first day as well, and then it went even worse on the second day than it did in Greece. So yeah, that was a bit. Yeah, bad tongues are saying we were too much partying
Yeah, I was
and
going to say, is there too much
celebrating
celebrating?
our first day, but yeah, I
Hooray,
guess
we're halfway there.
I'm a little bit guilty, right, for getting 2 rolls warming in the second day at least once. So that was not very, very, prof- you know, very, very smart. But it is what it is, right? But overall, a great experience. Yeah, Euroball is always is great. France totally deserved the win as well. So yeah, it was a good,
Yeah, I mean, it was lovely to
good
see
event.
France. I think it's fair to say finally deliver on the potential we all know France have had. And finally nail down that position that France deserve. I mean, absolutely, to be dominating a Euro Bowl and to be, showing the world the quality that France. I mean, I've been talking about it for a few years. How France, I think, are at streets ahead, even of the Spanish, who I would probably, as a sort of block, put next. I think the Euro Bowl and the World Cup in Alicante really developed Spanish Blood Bowl and brought just massive numbers in, and that's led to a surge in quality as well. But France has been such a dominant nation and did such a good job at the Euro Bowl.
And they also did a good job to actually put the top players in its squad for once, right?
Well,
So it's always a bit of a of a difficult thing, right? I mean, there are so many top
look,
players, right? So it's hard to
I'd
actually
been
find
so
the
nice. I
best
was going to
eight,
hold
right?
back on
So it's
questions like that
just
till later, but you've gone and brought it up. You're so toxic. Olivier, you're not in the next Euro Bowl squad, are you?
Absolutely not.
The French have thrown all 8 of their Euro Bowl winners in the bin and said, no, we're not having any more of them. We're going to bring 8 fresh players. Is that just a huge flex about the strength of French Blood Bowl, or is this some internal politics crap? How do you tell us non-French people what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I will not play who the I don't know, but I will tell you the truth.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yes, Jeff, Sam Dulac, and myself were not in the mood for a second round. So for personal reason and work reason, and just some, sometimes you invest a lot of time in Blood Bowl, and sometimes you have to take back and to do other thing, maybe before coming back to Euro Balls or big Blood Bowl things. But so we were free to we didn't want to go to Euro Ball, but Zaiko come back with the same project with a free and with a project. But in France there is an election thing, and some really good guys find the way to put the community in their pocket, and then they won the vote, so they are legitimate by the French community to go to Euroball. But we have a lot of message from a lot of international coach which were a little shocked by the fact that none of the 8 champions can come back, because it's the election we decide everything.
So the election is decided. In the election, you not only get elected as the captain, you get elected with a team, don't you? You say,
Absolutely.
here's who I'm picking, and the guy that won the election, as you said, got the community behind them. The community thinks that's the right choice for the next team, and
Yeah.
none of the current ones that just won the Euro Bowl will be there. Not one.
In France, we have a lot of good coach, and I think Euroball it's only 8 players, and there is a thing about just let the more people we can go to Euroball, but
Yeah,
sometimes it's difficult to say to a top player too you are not as good as another, and you have to wait
absolutely. It's
for.
very subjective, the differences between some of these very, very good players. I mean, I can see some upsides and some downsides here. I mean, in some ways, for you, I only see upsides. If they go to the next Euro Bowl and win, then how strong is French Blood Bowl, and you led the way. If they go and lose, then obviously we need Olivier back, because without him we cannot win. So
Yeah,
to
and
you, I think it's all win, this, isn't it?
I wasn't in the project who lost, so I was.
Yeah.
No, it's if the
You were
project
brought
lost,
in,
it's
they
because I
win,
wasn't.
and if they don't win again, obviously it's the lack of you. And if they do win, it's just how strong all the French are, and you led the
Yeah, yeah,
way. But
win-win.
there's definitely something there about the rumour, the history we hear of France also having some little pockets in the community, isn't there?
Yeah,
And as you said, if you know 7 fantastic coaches that you think can form a really competitive squad, you may not need some from another little pocket. You may think this is what will do it. And voting can always lead to all sorts of strange things. So that's what's going on there. Thank you for bringing that up, Strider. I was gonna put that on the back burner till later, but you just couldn't let it. You had to let it blow. And we haven't even spoken to Drakenspear yet, which I desperately want to bring in. But as well as going to the Euro Bowl, I wanted to talk to you about. I think of you as a team man, as a person that loves his teams, loves being with another person as they play their Blood Bowl, as a fine representative of the community. And yet you've been having a lot of single success playing on your own in your bedroom with the lights off, haven't you? You've been over that Blood Bowl 3 doing stuff.
I mean,
How was that?
you know, the thing is, I don't play that much on tabletop actually, right? So I have kids. I don't travel too much these days. So I still want to kind of get the competitive side somehow. So yeah, I started this Blood Bowl 3 thing to take a bit more,
Hmm.
competitively, and yeah, had some success, I guess, right? So It was a bit the struggle to go through this ladder process to qualify for this World Cup. The first one that was actually still in this year in January, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, after that, it was one game at the time, and the final was very tense. It was a great series against Dion Lord, who made it to the finals again now in December, right? Which is an amazing
Double
achievement. I
bridesmaid,
mean,
though,
hats
isn't he?
off.
That's
Crazy, right?
yeah.
Olivier and me made it to the quarterfinals both this time as well
Yep.
again, but then came short, right? And of course, I mean, there's so many good coaches. It's tough to get there. Even more, amazing for Diemler to get there twice, right? So it's absolutely crazy. And then I realized actually my January was pretty good, because at the same time there was the second win of the Fumble Super League, which I also play, which is good because it's only every other day. It's a game. It's the top competitive tabletop players are all there. Some of the online players have started to join as well, to play the NAF Resurrection style Blood Bowl
Yeah, so
on
there's two
Fumble,
iterations
and
under the name Super League at the moment, so we should just briefly explain.
yeah.
Jimmy Fantastic on Blood Bowl 3 runs a Super League that is very invitational, incredibly high quality. There's about 12 people in it, I think, maybe 14, I don't know. And it's really some very, very high quality Blood Bowl 3 players that have won things, that have topped their ladder, won their cups, won their chalices. But then over on Fumble, we also have something called the Super League, don't we? That's what we're talking about here.
Yes, yeah. So that's the thing that Triple Skull built up, trying to get. So there was a couple projects in the past, right? This Tackle Zone Star Divisions, were just all the basically the Euroball tabletop players wanted to get a competitive league going where you can really practice the new rule sets for the Euroball with very decent coaches, right? So that was very attractive, and it brought up. At one season it was almost 180 or 190 people or something in different divisions, right? So you have a kind of ladder system with moving up and down, and then whenever you made it to the top group of 8 people, right, then you just need to
Well, we've had
win
names
that
like
group, right?
you, Purple Goose, Store. I mean, some of the great names of Blood Bowl have been winning
Yeah,
that one. But I mean, I would suggest even at the second, third, fourth division, the Super League is full of some very quality coaches in it. Almost every game you're going to play.
yeah, it's tough. Even more, yeah, I was pretty happy. Luckily, just this week, I had some help from K-Forged to win against my direct opponent. So after I went down the last season to the second division, and I made it actually back up as Purple Good Kid. So we were both always in the same division. We always picked the same team because we always picked up the meta the same way. So it's pretty funny. So let's see if we play the same team again next season by looking at
If
the
I ever turn up
rule
to a
set,
tournament and
and
I've
we
got
always
exactly the same
came
as
up with
Purple Goo, I haven't gone wrong, have I? That's
yeah,
that's
that's
reassuring.
what, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
so that's pretty cool. Yeah. So that's, I mean, a lot of people, right? And then Jimmy's Super League, which I also played twice or 3 times, is just 2 groups of 6. I wasn't too successful there. I got an even record, so I mean, obviously that's
Oh.
still kind of success on the Super League, right?
I
Because they're
won
all
it in
top
its first ever
coaches.
season. Just saying, just
But
in passing.
yeah, but that was fun too, right? Playing these games. So yeah, I'll play my online, and then actually that January, right? I also managed to play our Swiss tournament. We had also a tabletop tournament there, just a one dayer, but managed to come out
So
on top there as well. So I
when
kind of
you have a
did
tabletop
the
tournament, do you go,
triple.
should we use us rules, or do you still say Swiss rules? I mean,
We use no, we use the Euroball rules then to just because it's now coming up beginning of January, so that's just when about the rules are kind of finalizing.
yeah,
So everybody wants to try them out still. And then once you get to June, July, then everybody's already seen enough, and then some tournaments rather want to try out new rules again. Especially like the one-day tournaments, right? The big ones usually still don't have the Euroball rules, but the smaller ones are more bit more flexible to give the people a
absolutely.
bit more
So a
difference.
year of success, even if most of it was in January of 2024. But hey, that's not over a year ago yet. And that brings me finally, of course, to our new guest, who, other than my traditional berating of his country with an amusing little bon mot, has sat lovely in some blue darkness for almost half an hour. My apologies for that. Hello, Drakenspear. Welcome to One World on Blood Bowl.
Thanks, PurpleChest.
You are also here because of your great success in 2024. So tell us about that. You're a winner, aren't you, and a dominant force.
Yeah, I won the Chaos Cup. That was the big one. I also won 7 other tournaments this year, including my Fumble NAF tournament.
Yeah.
Finished second in 4 others. So yeah, successful year in that way. Running 7 tournaments, including being on the committee for the Oracle Cup, which is the North American NAF major team tournament as well, which was held here in Ottawa this year. So lots going on this year.
And was that, did you set out thinking this is going to be, I'm really going to do lots of Blood Bowl, or did it just all suddenly click and come together?
No, it's certainly. I end up running with a colleague, not the porn guy, here in Ottawa. A lot of tournaments locally. We're getting a lot more tournaments here in the Glam series, which is kind of Ontario, Quebec, Ohio, Detroit, Michigan, Indiana, and that. So
Okay.
we had a ton of tournaments in the series, and so every month you can usually attend 1 to 2 tournaments if you are so inclined, and only within 2 to 7 hours of drive of you.
And has it changed how you look at Blood Bowl, having a really successful year? Do people look at you differently in your Blood Bowl community?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I was already getting the I don't want to get matched up against you kind of thing, and now it's really don't want to get matched up against you kind of idea. So.
So now when you walk in a room, their heads turn, do they? And the piano drifts off.
Well, you know, there's usually only between 20 and 40 people in a tournament here, so it's usually a small room. Yes.
Well, let's bring the others in on this. With a track record of success, which you three unarguably have this year, does it change how people look at you, how they play you, how they set up versus you? Whether it's online or in tabletop, do you get a sense of sometimes of that? People know they've run into the Strider or the OlivierDuLac, or, oh my God, it's Drakenspear. Don't all speak at once, obviously, but, feel free to come on in. Olivier, do you get that fear off people?
Yeah, I think maybe it was there is some change at the way the other people look at me, and I feel that the best at Lutèce. It's a team tournament in France.
Yep.
1 year ago, and it was in final, and I absolutely crush my opponent in a Scaven Derby. I think I won like 4-1 or 5-1, and at the end of the game, he was discussing with other guys of his team, and he was like really happy, and he was like, "Hey guys, I had a one touchdown for me, so not so bad." And he was really serious, and I was like, "Okay." Maybe if, I think sometimes people are looking a draw for me when they can push for a win, and they are like, okay, a draw is a good result against Olivier, so I'm taking it. And sometimes it's a little bit frustrating, but sometimes it's quite a good thing for my ego too.
Yeah, I mean, we all need our ego stroked sometimes, don't we? And there's nothing more reassuring than thinking I'm quite good at the game I love to play. I think
Yeah.
that's a really nice, warm feeling. Whether you need more than that in your world, I don't know, but that feeling is certainly good. Strider, you're a man of great modesty. Do you weaponize just how well known you are in Blood Bowl? Do you sometimes sit down and go, yeah, it's Strider? Strikes me you would.
I use my Super Bowl win ring as my turn counter to intimidate people.
I sense you
So,
don't, but do you think it happens? I mean, you are a known
no, I
name.
don't. I mean, no. I mean, I don't. I don't think so. So I mean, yeah, I mean,
We
maybe
recently had the
people
Blood Bowl
know me. I
3
don't know. I mean,
World Cup, they called it, and you and Olivier both did fairly well in that. But in the previews, people were talking up you and Diomed. I mean, obviously because of the previous one that you both had reached the final. How does it feel to be thought of as a favourite?
I get, I don't know.
He's a humble guy.
I don't really believe in this like mental things, like, oh, you have to intimidate or blah blah blah. But it's also because my personal experience is like I don't care against who I play. I always play my same game, and probably that's also my strength is probably consistency. That
So if Purple
if
Goose
I
sits
make
opposite you, you
few
play the same game as
mistakes,
someone that sits down and says, "This is my third game of Blood Bowl."
of course. The
I
only time when I
love the lack
start
of smile there.
changing that, the only time when I start changing it is when I actually see the person make big mistakes, right?
Okay.
But I'm not going to go and say like, oh, this guy told me that's a noob, so now I'm just going to score in turn 2 to win 6-1, right? I mean, it's like first you got to give me something, and then yeah, I mean
And then I'll
that's
score.
what,
Then I'll
right?
beat you
No,
6-1.
no,
But I need to see it in your eyes first.
no, but no, I mean honestly, right? I mean, so there's you. I mean, the way we play, there's usually no big gain in winning high or low. So
Yeah,
you always want to win 1-0 your half if you start to drive, right?
yeah.
And then if you kick, right, and then you get a turnover, obviously against a very good coach, I'm probably going to try to stall it out to win the half 0-1, right?
Hmm.
If I see that I could turn him over because it was relatively easy, then I'd rather just run it in and say, look, what happens. And then when you do that, usually roll then a
So if
blitz
I'm
in the
facing you,
second
you've turned. Yeah,
drive.
if I'm facing you, you've turned me over and scored quickly. You have no respect for my Blood Bowl coaching. That's what I'm hearing here.
Yes,
You've assessed in 3 turns that I am no threat.
yes.
So
But I mean, that
so
doesn't
toxic.
happen at the Euroballs or anywhere,
No,
right? But I mean, if you have a local tournament, you have a new player. I mean, well, it's not fun for him either. If I just
exactly. Yeah,
stall
yeah.
through then the other 7 turns after taking the ball away in turn 2, right?
So offering
Then
him the
he has
pretense
no
of a game is
gain, right?
definitely better. Yeah,
So I'd rather score and let him try again to get his
yeah,
offense going, right?
yeah.
Because it's more fun for both to play the game that way, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think if you assess this is no risk, then it's how do I make this a fun experience? Because I think I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's not unreasonable nor too toxic. Drakenspear, you were the first to say yes, so I came to you last. You've noticed a change. What's the change been like?
Just definitely you sit down and people don't want to play you, and so they do change somewhat. But when I first started playing tabletop, I had top coaches going, yeah, it's going to be 1-1 now. I'm going to put the ball in. I'm going to turn you over, and then I'm going to score. I don't have anyone doing that at all anymore, right?
Okay.
No one's going, no, I'm going to turn you over. So yeah, I'll definitely win this one. Except for things like Chaos Cup and that kind of stuff. These big tournaments, sometimes you need to win. Rad Ogre came over from Finland to Chaos Cup, and I played him. And going up 1-0, he knew he needed to score quickly because basically, if you tie a game, you might not win Chaos Cup. So he was very much, I need to win this game, and I need to do whatever I need to do to win this game, regardless of who I'm sitting across from or anything like that. So there's times where you need to put the wins up in these individual tournaments, because if you don't have 6 wins, you're not winning the major.
And knowing that now that you all three have a name, you are faces. Does that alter how you build? Does it alter how you play? Knowing again, that, as you said, you want to be up at that top end, you want to be getting those wins. And people might, I mean, back when Manchester City were good at football in the Premier League, people would set up against them very differently sometimes. Setting up from the very outset thinking a draw here is a great result. I'm not even going to try to win. Does that mean you have to coach differently if you're facing some of those sort of low blocks, as we would call them in football, or really negative play?
Uh, I think it's a bit different, right? So it's not that I think I want to win this game because it's a worse player, but there are situations where you are kind of needing to win games, right? So for one example is in our Swiss Euroball team, right? If you know that we need to have some wins on the top tables because most likely in the bottom two tables we're not going to get many points, you kind of want to push more for the win, right? So what I then usually do is instead of receiving, bringing in my turn 8 drive and then, kind of
Yeah.
securing the tie, especially if you play something like elves, right? Then you basically kick first, right? And then you can still decide in the second half whether you want to score quickly and then try to turn over, or if you turn over in his drive, then you can secure the win and have a good chance, right? So it leaves you more flexibility to play for the win if you need to, right?
But you're
And
also
that's
slightly
also,
altering your risk profile, aren't you?
yeah, because you're playing more of a win or loss versus playing more for a draw,
Yeah.
right? And I think that was also interesting in this World Cup format that we had on Blood Bowl 3, right? Where we had a game and then another game, and the results didn't matter, just the win or loss, right? So if you lost the first game, you had to win the second one, right? And you definitely had to play for a win, right? Whereas if you drew the first one, you could just play for a draw and maybe it's a win, but then you could force the third game, right?
Yeah.
So that was also pretty interesting whether you wanted to actually go for the win,
So to
even on the
explain to those
first
that
game,
didn't
and so
watch it,
on
it was
and so
best
on.
of two without overtime. So at the end of the game, it could be a win, loss, or draw. And then at the end of two games, there wasn't a clear winner of that. Then a third game was played that did have overtime, so that we would definitely end up with a winner after three. And it
Yeah,
was an interesting format, wasn't it?
yeah, it was because usually you see especially in the high level Euroball teams, right? You see the secure a tie and maybe you get something to get a win, right? Versus the hey, from the beginning, I'm more either I lose or I win type of games are in general a bit more interesting, right? Because there is just more swings, and once the ball is loose, it can go either this guy wins or this guy wins. Whereas if you just do the classic 1-1 drive, then Olivier makes the one turner and then it's 2-1, and otherwise it's just 1-1, right?
Yeah.
So that's a bit more, boring to play than if, you try to go for a win in the game. So forcing that scenario a bit more to have to play for the win is an added value, I think, for everybody.
I mean, it's kind of interesting, isn't it, when it changes your profile. Olivia, you're famously been interpreted by those that have only seen you recently as a very aggressive player online
Yeah.
and on tabletop. Is that natural, or has that been developing? The more successful you've got, the more you've had to lean into that aggression and keep it up because of those somewhat negative plays against you sometimes.
Yeah, I think I always maybe not at the start, but I became really fast, really aggressive at Blood Bowl because I learned to play. I learned Blood Bowl against Justicium, Karak, some great French players
Great
who
plays.
who are really. Like not passive in a bad way, but they are rating your mistake, and they are not playing with a high creative level, but they have so much. They play no risk, but if you made no mistake of the game, you can't win against them, and so I learned to become aggressive to beat them, and then it stayed for me, and during a long time I have a surprise effect for myself, and I think it helps me a lot to climb to top one at the NAF. But now I have to change a little my way to play because when you are really aggressive, sometimes you get just destroyed by the other team, and because you let too much block to the other team, and then with the arrive of the new rules at Blood Bowl and the different rewards you can use in the same turn.
Hmm.
I just learned to become better at one turn, which it was easy before, but it's easiest now, and then. if the other player play really passive and just go for the 1-1 turn 16, maybe I just have to put my best one turn and win the game with this thing.
Yes,
So I learned to change my style of playing because I have to adapt to my opponents and my aggressive. All people know that I'm really aggressive, so sometimes I have to change the tempo of the game because if I'm aggressive during the 15 or 16 turn, I will not going to the end of the game. With the
yes.
win.
Or you will with one or two rats left stumbling in, hoping they've scored
Yeah,
enough touchdowns.
absolutely, absolutely.
Drakenspear,
But this,
aggressiveness, is that, do you think, is it part of the success of the 2020 rule pack? I do notice more aggressive coaches doing well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
multiple rerolls turn.
I agree with that.
Yeah, the multiple rerolls turn makes a big difference in your aggression. If you can get the ball out, it's worth investing the reroll. You need to reroll management is a huge part of what separates left good coaches from good coaches. When to use it, when not to use it, when to accept failure, when to spend the rerolls to get the success you need. Oh yeah, elves and vampires and Skaven and these kind of teams doing really well all lend themselves well to aggressive styles where you can get in early and prevent your opponent from caging and getting the ball into a safe space. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a really key point there about the teams with agency are really starting to learn how to benefit from those multiple reroll turns. I think one of the things that's been interesting to me this year is trying to move my mindset from wanting my rerolls to stop my failures, but wanting my rerolls to guarantee my successes. And I think that's bringing a lot more success. It's just accepting sometimes that things go wrong, but on the turn I want it to go right, putting the rerolls in there to get the outcomes I want that turn. So, the turn before I might have to accept a double skull on a block I actually wanted to make. But if it's not vital, if it's not destroying what I'm doing, I'll take it. Um, and then that gives me that one more reroll for the turn where I really need it for the thing I want to happen rather than to stop the thing I don't want to happen. Now, we talked about our big years. What I want to know is just a little more, some short form stuff. Let's just get us all talking at once. That's always fun. I asked you a few questions to sort of have a think about. So let's talk about one of those now. What Christmas present would you want for Blood Bowl and yourself from Games Workshop? I'm sure, all heard the rumours of a new rule set, maybe sometime in 25. That's the rumours I've heard. It may not be, who knows. But let's assume that this time in maybe a year's time, there's a new rule set coming out, say November 25. If there were, what would your Christmas wish list to Grandpa Wendy be? To Games Workshop themselves, what are we asking for in a new rule set? Who wants to come in with their Christmas wish list? What presents should be under your Blood Bowl tree? Drakenspear.
Yeah, I could start off. The big thing for me, they've recently done with Necromunda and really with Kill Team and some of their other things, they've not done massive changes. Necromunda, for example, they didn't change the edition. They set out a new rule book with putting all the FAQs, tweaking a few small things, and saying all your other books are still good, essentially, but here's a book with some tweaks on the core skills and stuff like that, and that's it. For me, I don't think Blood Bowl needs a new edition. Um, Tweaks
But
definitely could
money,
be beneficial. Well, you still sell the book. You could still sell the whole pack. It doesn't have to be a new edition, right? Everyone's going to buy the new book,
because they do like money.
the new box pack. Oh yes, just 10 more Forge World Star players, and you're good.
Well, yeah, I wonder if that's going to be anyone's list. Okay, so a new rule set that isn't Revolution but tidies things up, moves us forward, gives them some money but doesn't mess with Blood Bowl too much. That's what you're hoping for under the tree. Olivier, what's your golden wish from Games Workshop this Christmas?
I think I just want some time. Maybe like I'm not against a new edition. We can change a little bit the way to play, but maybe you have to let 1 or 2 more years with this edition because you can just go for 1 or 2 new rosters or new re-editions of rosters, and just wait a little bit more before going for a new Blood Bowl.
Okay, so you want fleshed out with a few more races, but the rule set can stay the same for a couple of years.
Yes, please.
It's fine. You can both have different things. It's a magical world where I make Christmas wishes come true.
Thank you very much.
My friend Alex Strider, what's your Christmas wish? What's under your Christmas Blood Bowl tree?
Yeah, I might have a bit of a different opinion than most of the competitive players because I really don't care that much what the rules are. I think their main job is to grow the community and make sure that they get a lot of newcomers picking up Blood Bowl, right? So if a new rule set, if a new team, if these overpowered stars helps them to get people in the game, that's fine. Because at the end of the day, we will anyways adjust the rules in a way that we can play a competitive Blood Bowl, right? So if there are more stars and things that all the people that like painting buy and have fun and go to their local leagues and have a fun game with a weird star making a casualty every other turn and the other player likes it as well for maybe one or two games, and then he also buys that star because it's great. I mean, I don't play the tabletop that much, so I don't care that much honestly what Games Workshop does. As long as they try to get more people on board that find their way to the online games, to the tabletop events, I think that's great, right? Because the more people there are in the community, the better, more money gets in, more people are there, it's easier to find games online, and that's at the end of the day more the things I care about.
So what you want from Games Workshop is for them to keep bringing more and more people in so that you can grind them up in your online hate dungeon, destroy their hopes and dreams, and get easy
Come
wins in Blood
on.
Bowl 3.
Every noob needs to get beaten once or twice, right?
See,
No,
behind the smile and the politeness, there's a monster there. An absolute monster. Never trust
no,
the
no,
Swiss.
no, no.
So I hear you. So the health of the game is really what you're looking at there, is that, and that no matter what Games Workshop do, we're experienced enough as a community that we will find a way of making fun tournaments happen, of making tabletop relevant and viable.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they start
think
bringing
so.
in Space Marines on tabletop, we can still sort it out. We can still make tournaments happen that make sense. Or we can go
I
to
mean, we
Hungary,
handled
one or the other.
Underworld, right? So,
Yeah, we
can't
did. We
really.
dealt with Underworld, and then eventually they got nerfed back into something a lot more reasonable.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, though, that's our New Year's presents. That's our Christmas presents. What are your New Year's resolutions? What are we going to be doing differently next year? What are you hoping for, or promising yourself, or trying to do and trying to get to? I've promised myself that if I am not lucky enough to get a spot on Team England, and Team England is a very competitive team, I think that's unlikely, but you never know, I might. Then I'm probably not going to go to Hungary, but I'm going to go. If not, I'm going to go to another European event. So I will definitely be going over the channel into that land that we Brexited from, meeting my ex-brothers and current enemies, and playing some Blood Bowl with them somewhere in Europe at some point in 25. That's my New Year's resolution. What are yours, gentlemen? What is Blood Bowl going to make you do next year? Olivier.
Um, I think I'm gonna take a long break from Blue Bull to start the year for work issues. So maybe my resolution is to continue to play online to make sure that this break of tabletop is not going to crush my level, and I don't want to come back to tabletop tournament and to be piece of shit and and then
Uh,
lost all the credit I get.
But you want to be the man that comes over the horizon in 9 months' time, and they go, he's back.
Yeah, that's a good wish.
Wow. I mean, on that bombshell, giving up all Blood Bowls, playing no Blood Bowl at all, taking a full break, only playing online every minute of his life. Wow, the world is saved from Olivier, the tabletop world, for a few months. You told me something like half a year, or maybe even longer, a real proper break?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I made my last tournament. That was my the father of my future wife who organized the tournament. So I went 5-0-0 in last days of October, and then no tournament during November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. So nine month break, maybe 10.
Wow.
So that's I think it's maybe like 12 years I will not have a Blood Bowl tournament during 9 months. So it's a big thing for me.
Do you think you're going to miss it?
Oh.
I do see some tears there already.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a yes. There's one other detail I wanted to check. The person you described as your future wife, does she know that?
Yeah,
Good,
absolutely.
checking,
Absolutely.
just checking, because
Absolutely.
otherwise that would have been a
Absolutely.
very weird thing to say about someone. I mean, I've got an eye on someone I think of as my future second wife, but she doesn't know. So I just wondered if you were the same. Drakenspear, your New Year's resolution in Blood Bowl. What are you going to do more of, or less of, or do differently?
Yeah, the big thing for me is driving the community here. I've again running 7 tournaments, and that it's very much about getting more people in the community as well. I run the Capital City Kickoff, which is the largest tournament in Eastern Canada. It's about driving people into these things, getting the community together, particularly
Which is also
in
useful for
the
defense against the wolves, isn't it?
exactly. We need to band together.
Yeah.
But bringing the French side in Quebec and the Ontario side down in Toronto.
I've never dared ask. So I'm going to
together.
ask: Do the Quebecois play Blood Bowl with the English-speaking Canadians?
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're very friendly. It's just a matter of it's Quebec City is 10-hour drive to Toronto, right? So you're not getting that coming down for a 1-day tournament by any means, let alone 2 easily. But yeah, and it's continue to drive again. I have an eye to the Euro Bowl as well. Hopefully to be selected for Team Canada again, and for us to improve on our performance at Euro Bowl as well.
Do you have some weird French system of selecting people, or the fact that you're a multiple tournament winner and the Chaos Cup winner, shouldn't that pretty much give you a seat?
Well, I don't want to presume anything to the Team Canada committee. But yeah, the captain was elected, and he'll be selecting with the committee. And I would imagine I will get selected, but don't want to presume anything.
Twould seem likely, yeah. Okay, so growing the community. Have you been having a lot of growth? I mean, I've been talking about this idea of a Blood Bowl golden age. Has it been happening there? Are you getting loads of new people coming through?
Yeah, for sure. Montreal has had a huge uptick in coaches. Ottawa ourselves actually have not. We've actually had a drop. Toronto is a bit of a weird zone where there's not a lot of blood bowlers in Toronto, and then you get more blood bowlers on the other side. So yeah, it's really about getting more people into the community here in Ottawa, and Toronto needs to get some more strength as well. So more tournaments, more awareness, getting into again as adjacent games, Warhammer 40K and all that kind of stuff to try and pull people over.
Point out how much better our game is.
Yeah.
And do you go on raids down across the border into America and take their cups away?
Yeah, I went to New York State. It was about a 6-hour drive to last January, and typically go to the Underworld Cup in Detroit. And I've been to the last 2 Chaos Cups, so it's certainly something we look to do. But again, it's a long. Detroit is a 7-hour drive for me, so it's one of these things. You're not doing that for every tournament. Underworld Cup is the longest running North American tournament, so it's worth going to.
Yeah, North America, it's a continent with only a couple of countries in it. It's a very weird thing. Huge amounts of space. Strider, New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, I would say it's a bit the combination of those two things. On one side, since Blood Bowl 3 came out, even since Blood Bowl 2 came out, right, I wanted to get involved. I wanted to make my name known, mainly to give Swiss people that play the game a chance to make the transition to the tabletop community, right? We have
Do you want to be the Swiss Andy
severe
Davo? Is that what I'm hearing?
We have a severe shortage of Swiss people that want to play competitive Blood Bowl, right? And it has now started to pick up a little bit. Unfortunately, this year I have voided my captaincy to Chocaero because
Was a
it's
mistake.
just in the school holidays, and
But he's terrible at Blood Bowl.
and I won't be making it. And yeah, that statement, if you asked me before, is there one person you didn't want to play, It's only one person I don't want to play, and that's him. And it's not because he's not a nice guy; it's because I respect him probably the most of all coaches. He is also my master and taught me everything I know. Right, so yeah, pretty good hands, that the Swiss team still. But obviously, right, since we're short on players, it will be a bit of a rebuild phase probably this year. We'll see, but I'm definitely still going to be available to, help all the people that want to, come forward and play for the team still with replays. We usually do, analyze some replays, give some feedback, play some test games, to give the people who want to a chance to actually improve, right? So
Yeah.
that's definitely a thing I'm still going to be available to do. On the tabletop side, I'm not going to play basically anything this year probably. Just focus more on the family and keep my Blood Bowl to the whenever everybody of the family is asleep, which is my games
I mean,
after
you
10
say that, but
p.m.
even with the Blood Bowl 3 World Cup of Blood Bowl on Blood Bowl 3, or whatever they called it, that did have some time pressures, didn't it? There were certain slots you had to play in because
Yeah,
cash was on the line.
and yeah, but the discussion with my wife were not any better when I was talking about cash was involved.
It didn't move the
it's
needle.
yeah. I mean, Andy said it in the cast, right? At the end of the day, it's probably more about the fame than the money, right? Even though it's great, obviously, that we have prize money in a Blood Bowl tournament, which is amazing, right? And but I mean, if you are able to travel Europe to go to these tournaments, buy teams, paint them, and so on, right? You already invest so much money into the game, right?
Yeah.
Winning or losing 400 euros or even 2,000 euros is not going to make your life probably different.
I was going to say, I think
right?
you won 400 or 500 euros. If I offered you to swap that, but you would win the whole thing instead, but no money.
Yeah, right away. I don't care. Yeah, I'll take the win.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, because you're right. I mean, and I mean, it's not even. And for me, talking about, let's say, fame and stuff, right? One thing is, as I said, right, I wanted to get the know my name for people who start so they can seek for help in the Swiss community and try to make the transition. That's one thing, right? And then I think the other thing is within the Blood Bowl players, I don't really care because anybody who does play Blood Bowl, they can look at my games and make their opinion whether I'm good or not. So I don't care whether I win anything. I also don't judge anybody on what they win. I judge them on watching their replays and how they play, right? And that's how I form my opinions on who are great players. But if you talk to your, work colleagues or friends like, oh, I'm going to spend this other weekend again, in Greece, what are you doing? Well, I'm going to play a nerd game with another 2,000 nerds. And they're like, well, are you any good in it? And then they're like, well, yeah, or you can say, well, I'm probably amongst the top 100 coaches in the world. That's a kind of cool thing to say if then just saying I play but usually get my butt kicked. So
I mean, when you say
kind
kind
of
of cool, it is, but within very limited boundaries.
yes, of course, right. But it's better to play a nerd game and at least be a little bit successful than play a nerd game and not be successful.
Definitely.
I guess, but maybe that's just our opinion, and the other people, they just don't care, and you're just a nerd anyways, right?
Yeah, I have to
So,
say, people, when I have
but
won
then
things and I've come
again,
back and told the family, they've been largely underwhelmed. There hasn't been quite the sort of applause and carry me around the house on shoulder back that
yeah,
I had expected.
it's like
Drakenspear, how much
hey,
did it change your life, suddenly becoming a name, being this huge man of Blood Bowl?
It doesn't change anything. Again, it's about you know the community's good here. It's a lot of good people, and that doesn't change anything at all for me in that community. It's just a matter of whether or not people are um, happy to play me or not, and whether they want to win the tournament.
I want to move on to some quicker ones now. There is a couple of teams that were new this year, and I want to talk about those a little bit. But before we do, let's break our way in. I want your pick, these ones I haven't warned you about, for your team of 2024. What race has either been interesting you or appealing to you, or you've seen do some interesting things, or you think is worth talking about, or you've changed your mind about? What race do you want to tell me is your pick is the race of 2024, the one making the news, making the waves?
I'll go on the limb and say Amazons.
Okay.
They're the change over losing the 4 combat skills. Everyone definitely was like, "Oh, they're weaker." Losing 4 combat skills, and I don't, losing combat skills is never a good thing for team. But I think the pieces that they have given them a little bit of extra, more dynamic play in other ways that has strengthened them. I hate playing them. Because at the end of the day, everything is so much of a 1 and 9 trap. I can get 2 dice in the ball if I just dodge away. Oh, it's a 3+ with a reroll. That's not good. I need to push here, but I don't have a combat skill. It's a 2 die block. Oh, well, it's 1 and 9 risk all over the place, and which I just don't like. But their results speak for themselves. They're doing really, really well in NAF tournaments. Not so strong in kind of a league format, but when you're restricting people giving 6, 7 skills, or in some cases if you're giving them 7, 8 skills in a tournament, if they're tiered lowly, they're a really, really tough team to defeat in a lot of cases, and it's an interesting one for the community, building tournaments around Amazons.
Yeah, Underworld, of course, were the top of the tree. A good 5% in some metrics above even Amazons in terms of their win rate. But now that we've chopped them down to size a little bit, they're a much more reasonable team to face now. Still getting reasonable results, but nowhere near what they were. People started to notice that Amazons are 3 or 4 points ahead of everything else. Do they need a nerf, do you think, Drakenspear? Are they just a little bit too far ahead?
I don't know if they need a nerf per se. I think that some of their natural predators are just being seen less by top coaches, right? Like, not a lot of top coaches playing dwarves, at least in what I've seen. So some of their kind of more natural predators are maybe not around as much. But yeah, I think it's just the tournaments need to tier them. I think tier 1 as well. The putting them in tier 2, I don't think is reasonable in the current kind of meta of the way the tournaments are being built at the moment. Yeah, don't ever give them dribble and drool access.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And as you said, the natural predator thing I think is really huge. Not only have we seen dwarves played massively less, but as you say, at the top ends of competitions out by top coaches, but I mean, Chorfs obviously have just lost all of their tackle and weren't being played hugely much beforehand as well. Perhaps the meta will adjust. Perhaps we will see the wheels spin around a bit more, and perhaps people will focus a bit more on sort of pulling those Amazons back in. If they know they're going to be up at the top end of tournaments, they're going to have to find answers to them. So it'll be interesting to see if that's one of the things 25 brings us. Olivier, what is your race of 24? What's the team or the
Vampires. No hesitation here. Yeah, I think maybe people don't realize this right now, but it's by far one of the best roster of the game, and I think in good hands, like for example Spartaco, it could destroy every people with you can make 6 bad turns, and then you made like 4 or 5 2+, and you're back in the game, and you're in defense, but the ball is in your hands. So for me, vampires are the team for 2024 and will be the team of 2025.
Luckily, I've made 4 picks, so the fact that you've just taken one of them away means I still have several I can mention when it comes to my turn. I absolutely agree. I think vampires are a big, big news of 24.
Yeah.
You've just given me a sleepless night, though. I've got over all of my stress fears about facing Spartaco. Not to be confused with the other, also very well-known coach, Spartacus. Spartaco, I think of as one of the most aggressive of the Italian coaches. Now, to be an aggressive Italian coach is amazing. And I remember him coming for you with Wood Elves every single turn for 16 turns. And then finally they nerfed leaping, and I thought, at least Spartaco will be a little less dangerous. And then they gave him vampires. And now that you just said Spartaco and vampires in the same sentence, I can see it all, and it's terrifying.
He just became the number one tabletop vampires coach, and I
I'm
think
not
he's like
surprised.
235 points, but it's just the beginning, really,
Yeah.
and it will end. I think he will. This guy will take my place in a few
Well, I
months.
mean, lots of people told me that how aggressive you were, and the first time I saw you play, I said he reminds me of Spartaco. He's got that level of aggression at times. But I think yours is tempered a little more. Spartaco, I don't think he has any gear other than Gear 5 coming for you with everything I've got. Which I think is a fabulous way of playing Blood Bowl. And if more people on Blood Bowl 3 understood that, we might see a less conservative meta there. But that's also something about the race choices that they have. Interesting. So vampires, yeah, they've been absolutely dominating a lot of the tabletop scene. I don't think people really understand how strong they can be yet. We're still seeing people experimenting, looking at how much dodge, how much pro, how many other kill skills we can afford to have on them. Do they need to be hitting things?
Yeah,
Can they
there
just
is a lot of things to do, but
yeah, there's
also.
so many different ways you can play them. You can just disappear half the field and move around it. So you don't need to remove people. You can remove them on a very temporary basis. The fact they can take skills off
Or like
people,
Spartaco, don't put a
huge.
single dodge or block or any kind of combat skill on it and still destroy everyone.
Yeah. I faced them at the World Cup where they had the Euro Bowl. They had, I think it was 5 of the vampires had pro and the 6th one had leader. So they had pro on everything and then 5 re-rolls on top of that. And just the number of dice, just the sheer
Yeah,
amount of
that's
dice
crazy.
rolling going on that
Crazy.
table. I mean, we needed several other people with multiple hands each. We could have used Shiva there doing the dice rolling for us. Strider, what is your race of 24?
Yeah, I mean, I agree on the vamps as well, right? And it's maybe, I mean, obviously they're still in Euroball, they're still like tier 3, right? So that means eventually they'll get adjusted into an upper tier until their win rate is where it should be, right? Which
Yeah,
kind of plays back at my statement before. Like, I don't care what the rules are. We can make it into a tiering that it's still going to drop the win rate, because
yep,
if they only have 3 pro and not 5, it's a different game a bit, right?
yeah,
It's still interesting because the skill gap, in my opinion, is a lot higher than with other teams, because you have so many different options and you have to think a lot more, right? And when I played all the VAMP coaches, I played Jeff in the French team, I played Duke Luther, Van Hagfire in the Spanish team, both top coaches, right? I had to bring out the clock because I put them in tough situations, and with VAMPs, you just have so many options, they couldn't decide
yeah,
what they want to go for, right? And that's great, right? Because that means that the skill gap is still at the level where even top coaches don't know what they're supposed to do, right? With a lot of other races, I would say 4 out of 5 top coaches would kind of agree on what the play is to do,
hmm
right? And yeah, maybe there's a couple turns where Olivier will go in and maybe Purple Goo wouldn't, right? And sometimes that has a bit of a impact on who you play, on how you set up, right? I would leave maybe a 4+ dodge into a 1 dice on a blotcher to Purple Goo because I know he's not going to take it anyway, so I can put one more guy into the battle of blocks, right? Whereas for Olivier, I'd rather not give him that because I know he's going to do it, and even if he gets it, even if he doesn't get it, right? Yeah, maybe I can foul the
yeah,
gut runner, but if he does, it's just so annoying, and he's still going to do it if I make the odds worse. So I'd rather make the odds worse, and he's still going to do it, right? Than leave it open. And so it actually does. So the point we discussed earlier, right, with the image you have of being an aggressive player can
yeah,
actually help you if you then adjust your playstyle to play a bit less aggressive, because people will
yeah,
overprotect the ball against you,
100%.
and then you can kind of do this. And as long as you're flexible, and if people think like Purple Goose style of more passive player, but he then still sometimes just goes for it as well,
Yeah,
right? And if you are that player who can do everything, then that's the ideal
and
case,
he's
right? So
he's
that you
passive in the
can
way that my
use
wife is,
that.
and that he's simultaneously throttling every option that you have and giving you no choices.
Of course, right? Of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, so
Well,
and
and that
that's why I like the ramps, right? Because the skill gap is quite high,
yeah,
right? That's also why I like to play Underworld, not because they're just so much overpowered, but because with the possibility to fill the gaps with the Snotlings and have a Frenzy Blitz with the Rat Ogre, you have so many chain push possibilities and things that you can do. It has you thinking a bit more than if I play Wood Elves. There's basically plan A is grab the ball. If it's not yet picked up, plan B is just dodge away and screen. And then plan C is do the one turner, right? And that's then basically already your game plan, and there's not much else you can do, right? And with team like Vamps, it's just, or Slan, that's why Cave also likes to play Slan as well, right?
Yep.
The game every turn starts to get, a bit more tricky, right? And that's probably why it's a cool team.
Yeah,
But
vampires
yeah,
are
I agree.
one of the
It's
four
a
I
bit
had,
OP. Yeah, it's
but
a
I had
bit
the
too
same
high,
feelings.
too low in the tiering, I think.
Yes, I think so. I think they need retiering, and or we might see Hypno Cheat go back to a 3+.
Yeah.
Across the board. You can leave everything else, put that to a 3+ and see where they go. It might be that's too strong enough, but certainly I think at the moment
Part of why
we're only really finding out some of the stuff that they can do, and what they can do is absolutely terrifying in the right hands. So they were definitely one of my four. Another one I have to say was going to be Knobs, but I think really not the team itself, because the team is still god awful at Blood Bowl. But what I quite enjoyed, particularly on the Blood Bowl 3 iteration, and I think we saw it a little bit at the Euro Bowl as well, was that even with a team as truly woefully awful at Blood Bowl as Imperial Nobility are, with the right tiering, they can still be made competitive. They can still, if you really choose to get every race in and firing, then even Imperial Nobility can be a competitive race. So I thought that was why they were one of my teams of the year. They're still awful, but everything can work if you do a genuine all teams viable rule set. The only other one that I really wanted to talk about we haven't mentioned is gnomes. Now, I'm on record as, yes, we've got the lovely hat, so you've inspired me to talk about them. I don't like gnomes. I don't think I really desperately want to coach them. I might do it once just for the laughs or just to get the badge. But what I did like about them, and I think it's been true of just about everything we've seen in the last year or so out of the Games Workshop and Blood Bowl, is that they arrived and they didn't really annoy me. They weren't so terrible, so outside of the curve, so beyond the realms in terms of power or wherever they were coming in, that I thought someone reasonably sane has put these together. Someone who maybe even understands how they might be used in Blood Bowl. And despite the fact that on the NAF style they're going to be very, very powerful, there's a level of balance to them. They're not coming in and completely upsetting the power graph. And I thought that was a really nice thing for Blood Bowl. If we've got someone finally designing stuff, finally releasing stuff for us, that maybe has some inkling of where that's going to sit within the rule set, I thought that was a really, really good move forward. I'm going to go even more granular. Is there a skill that's been interesting you or catching your eye, or that you've been trying to use more of, or noticed that's been doing interesting things this year? Because I've got a couple I want to talk about. So is there a skill out there that's really been grabbing your attention? Anyone coming in with a skill for me for 2024?
Yes.
Come on then, Olivier.
Side
What is it?
side steps. Side
Oh,
steps. I
okay.
think I know during a long time that it could be a good addition to a gutter runner in the Scaven team, and I finally go for it this year, and it just was really good because defensively it opened a lot of options with pressure you can put on the cage, and the way you can play on the sideline. And then in offense, sometimes when you have like a war dancer with true ball or a witch with wrestle, maybe you just want to take the ball with the side step because you know that the ball is going to go down, but you have more control where the ball is going. And no, I didn't mention the fact that for the one turn, it could be a
You
really
didn't.
helpful thing.
Oh, you beautiful man. You mentioned three other factors about having sidestep on your gutter before you came to what I think everyone would assume if they look at a Skaven team and see a sidestep gutter. So I
Yeah,
think when
and
people looked at your team and they see a sidestep gutter, they think, oh, for some reason Olivier needs help with his one turning, so he's cheated and got himself a sidestep gutter. Because it definitely makes sidestepping to the victory. A sidestep gutter makes one turning on rats
yeah.
childlike in its simplicity. I think we can all agree there. But actually, what was really interesting there in your answer was you named three distinct areas where tactically it was incredibly useful, none of which were about that one turn.
Yeah,
which is
and
really, really
I
interesting.
I don't know if you have seen my Blood Bowl 3 games for
Mhm.
the World Championship,
Oh, yeah.
but I tried two side steps and one stand up on the Truman, and the stand up was a little bit disappointing,
Yes.
but the two side step were really great and open with the War Dancer Frenzy. It opened a lot of
Yeah.
possibilities, and so sidestep is my skill of 2024.
Fantastic and really good reasonings. I like that idea of we can force things into the cage with it. We got a really defended sideline push if that's what we need to do, which otherwise you just don't have. People think they do, but they really don't. It's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, but the best point is actually anti one turner defense as well, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So you make it a lot harder if you have a sidestepper or two
A- ab-
sidestepper for
abso-
the one turner
Absolutely.
of the other team, right?
yeah.
That's also one of the reasons why I play with sidestep war dancer. If you have a
Okay,
3 and a sidestep war dancer, it gets so much harder.
yeah. So there's a fourth reason before we look at our own one turning. I think that's great. The one I would just want to come back to a tiny bit though is this idea that carrying on it because I know I'm going to get sacked. Is a really interesting mindset from the number one NAF player, remember, which is who we're talking to right now, and a Euro Bowl winner. So if even he's telling himself at times, there's a good chance I'm not keeping the ball for this whole drive. I'm playing vampires, I'm playing wood elves, I'm playing one of those sorts of teams where it's going to probably go down. That if it's on a sidestepper, I get more choice about where it goes down. There's one of the, I forget what the exact skill's called because I would never ever take it. But there is a passing skill where you get to choose which square you put the ball in as you go down, isn't there?
Is it
Safe pair of
safe
Yeah,
hands.
pair of
Is
hands or
it, is it
something?
safe pair of
Something.
hands? Yeah, it might
yeah,
be.
Yeah, it's an agility skill.
Yeah, which of course has a really similar impact, but um, we can do that with sidestep. Fantastic, Strider. You've already said that sidestep would be one of your skills of the year. Any others? Can you find a skill of the year for me for 2024?
Yeah, I think defensive has been interesting
Yeah.
with the Amazons, right? And with the whole bash matchup, yeah, it's I think it's a bit underestimated, right?
Well,
I
much as
wouldn't
I hate
probably
singing my own
take it in a
praises, I've
NAF
been saying this for a
tournament,
couple of years, haven't I? That I think defensive is
but
the big coming skill.
you only see how annoying it is when you then have to actually play against it,
Yeah,
right? It's kind of similar to Fend, right? I mean, you would never take Fend, but it's still annoying sometimes when you then realize late in the turn, hey, I can't follow up there. Actually, especially if you kind of ignore it, right? Like on the Knobs lineman or something, right? And it's
yeah.
just so yeah, but defensive, yeah, I think there's some thing to it, but it's probably more about the league environment, right? When you can stack it after guard and so on, and where it gets really important, especially if you have these high team value bash matchups where it's probably pretty useful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think absolutely there. It's going to be really key if you're smashing some 1800 orcs into some 1900 chaos. The person that's got a couple of defensives is going to have a really huge edge in that matchup. Um,
I agree.
I think what's been interesting to me is seeing it being yet another sort of nail in the coffin of dwarfs who, goodness me, dwarfs do seem to need a bit of love right now. You're not seeing a lot of them being coached to the tournaments. You're not seeing a lot of them picked for team events even, where their solidity perhaps makes them a little more justified than single player. Um, they've had no good stars of their own. Grim Sadjaw is still the most expensive piece of waste of time there is in the star roster. I'm just not seeing as much love for the dwarfs as people were expecting in this rule set, which lots of people said was going to be really dwarf friendly. Lots of aspects of it are, but certainly on the tabletop, certainly in the competitive scene, even on Blood Bowl 3. I mean, in the Blood Bowl 3 World Cup, they recently had 64 teams enter. No one picked dwarves. There was none, not one single dwarven roster. Now, many people may be cheering about that, but once you take out, one of the big predators, that means something to the prey. That means we're going to get an upsurge of the things that normally they control. So when Amazons do arrive, that's going to be, much harder. Some of the dodgier races and the elves, with less dwarfs to fear. Obviously, we're going to see more blodge to the rise. That would be my theory. Let's see if that holds true.
Uh, I
I
think the
don't know.
dwarfs also suffered a bit from the multiple reroll, right?
Yeah,
Because they were a team that kind of puts on pressure and hopes for the other team to then crumble.
yeah.
And if they now have just always this, I had a double skull now, I can just roll another one and still have a reroll. It's just these turnovers happen less, and the You can
Yes.
profit less
Yeah, I
from
think you're absolutely right. I think
building
the
up the
multiple
pressure.
rerolls don't help them and do hinder them.
Yeah.
The dwarves don't have the same level of agency, so on their go turn when they're hitting the ball, they probably had worked it so they would get a hit on the ball, which they would re-roll if it didn't do what they wanted. So they don't need multiple re-rolls. They only got that one hit, so they will still re-roll it if they need to. But in terms of staying safe, a lot of dwarf play was about ensuring that, yes, of course you can get to my ball any time, but it's going to take your re-roll at least to get there. But if you've got 3, suddenly that's much, much harder for the dwarves to stop. And you need to pop a dwarf ball once and they are ruined. So yeah, I think that the multiple rerolls has really hurt dwarves, both in their defence and they can't use it on their offence, or to turn over. So yeah, I think they don't gain from it, but they lose from it hugely. Skill of the year, Drakenspear.
I don't have anything really interesting to say on that one. I'm boring. I usually put block and dodge and wrestle and
All the
these
good
sorts of
ones.
skills no one's heard of, on their players. Um, I definitely can echo the sidestep. I took Elven Union to Chaos Cup, and the North theme, I played Corn and Skaven and North, and the 2 sidesteppers, being able to put them on the sideline and be able to now, okay, normally you're denied the sideline to have those sidesteppers there. The sideline's no longer denied to you. So for agility teams who don't have access to these, and with more teams having base frenzy and stand firm, that kind of stuff, sidestep becomes even better for the agility teams to help them control the pitch their way versus letting the pass team control it their way.
I mean, my shout out was going to be defensive, but shorn of that, I'm going to go with pro. And I mentioned it with the Vamps. I think when Vampires first came out, I said, pro has already got better. In the old rule of Vamps, we had a lot of pro on Vamps. It seemed a good thing for them to have. Pro is now a much better skill than it was then, so it's going to be even better on Vampires. And the first Vampires I coached had a lot of pro on them, and it was moderately successful at times. I got really bogged down by a Snotling team, but then who doesn't? They just remove them. Who needs them? Let's just all pretend they never did Snotlings, and we'll just move on. The world will be better. And everyone told me I was crazy. Everyone told me I was wrong. And instantly we saw lots of vampire teams with 2 dodge on the runners, with block and maybe leader on the throwers, and then strip ball and perhaps block on the blitzers. No Vargeist unless you're Kalorn, because you're not stupid. And good as he is, he just doesn't synergize as well with the rest of the team like all the vampires do together. But it's a hell of a big guy. It's a real shame it can hardly ever be justified, except by a crazy Irishman. And I thought, okay, they're right. I'll put dodge on all my runners. I'll put block on. I'll put leader on. And the meta is starting to come back to where I was, where I've noticed that some of the better coaches in England with vampires, not me, have started taking 1 dodge runner and 1 pro runner. On the grounds they do need a fast runner that they can try and 1 turn with, that can run away with the ball when they get it. But pro is so good anyway. It's 2/3 of a reroll of anything you're trying to reroll. And vampires roll so many dice that even with multiple rerolls, perhaps the ones you don't mind failing but would like to pass, perhaps those can be pro'd. And if you're going to have to activate and not bloodlust, and then run somewhere, maybe dodge a couple of times to get there, and then hypno cheat when you get there, I mean, there's enough rolls, all of which you could throw a pro at, and if it failed, it wouldn't be the end of the world. And then if it gets there, maybe that's when you need to start using the rerolls, because now it is definitely the go turn. I just think pro is underrated in general on all pieces at the moment. Again, it used to be, people argued about should a troll take block, should it take pro. Then pro got better, and that argument seemed to disappear. And I think that's a bit strange. I think pro is much better than it used to be. I'm amazed we don't see more of it. In a recent
I
season on
see.
Blood Bowl 3, I was rolling randoms on my Dark Elf linemen. And the ones that got pro were so dangerous. There was so much they could do. I think it's underrated. That's what I'm saying about pro. Any
I,
responses to my pro love,
I I
Olivier?
think yes. I think some big French coach players are starting to play a pro on the big guy more than block,
Mm.
and it's really really annoying. And at the Euro Ball, I have a really tough match against Spanish, I think, which was playing humans. I don't like humans, and he had a ogre, and it was really hard to play around because you are always waiting for the one on the activation. But now with Pro, there is a really good thing, a really good probability that the ogre will finally play. So
Yeah.
Pro is great, and I think a lot underestimate.
Yeah, Kalon in the chat actually has pointed out a good thing I should mention, which is its one big downside is you're not supposed to be able to use it prone.
Yeah, absolutely.
But luckily, enough people on tabletop don't know that you can just cheat and pretend you can.
And PurpleChest,
Never ever
with
do that. Now that I've told you can't use it prone, no one that's watched this ever has an excuse. You know that prone you cannot pro, and I was joking. Before it ends up on TikTok.
with Euroball restricting you to 4 skills as well, things like dodge and that kind of stuff, Pro might see some more play as well, just in general.
Yeah, I mean, I've said a lot that pro is it's 2/3 of sure hands, it's 2/3 of dodge, it's 2/3 of lots of things. I mean, it sort of isn't because of course it isn't the defensive side of dodge; it's only the movement side of it. But 2 out of 3 times you can re-roll as if you had dodge. Same with the pickup, not with the stopping yourself being strip balled part of sure hands. But it's 2/3 of catch. So it's 2/3 of lots of things, and 2/3 is quite a lot. But obviously it's not as much as all. So it depends what you want and how many skills you are allocated. I do think Pro is undervalued, and I would expect to see more of it in 2024. So there's our panel's picks, the skills that you're going to see more of in 25, the big skills of 24, sidestep, defensive, and Pro. Strider.
One more though.
Okay.
My personal secret skill pick of the year is by far Big Hand on the Underworld Snotling. So
Okay.
So I played this in this year's Super League in the last season, right? And okay, the rule set was it only cost 10k, so it's a bit cheating. But nevertheless, it actually won me 2 straight games with just dodging in on 2s, picking it up on a 3, dodging back out, giving it to the gutter runner, and off you go, right? It's
Because
nasty.
big hand means it
All you
avoids
need
everything, doesn't it? It just picks up
all you need
naturally
is
on a
to
3.
pop the ball, right? So
Yeah.
what did I combine it with? Well, there's hobgoblins who can get horns, who can dodge in 3+ if you don't have guard. You can cancel the assist with the snotling. Just go in 1 dice with the horns goblin, then pick it up with the big head guy. It's nasty, right? So it actually worked in 2 games. And then in 2 other games, he died immediately, but that doesn't matter because it's only a snotling, right? So you can still play on the room
But
afterwards. You have
what's
plenty
lovely
of
about
skills.
that is not just you finding yet more toxic ways of ruining everyone else's fun, but it's hearing that there might be a future for Underworld beyond snipe, foul, and one turn.
Yeah, I mean, I really did like this rule set which values different skills at different prices. I think in the long term, if we want to have a good tiering, that's probably where we need to go. I mean, if you want to have diversity, right? Because we have not seen as much diverse builds since the Super League season. There have been all kinds of fun builds going around. Everybody, I think, enjoyed it, except if you had to play against my big hand.
But I'll trade you
But
five arm bars for a mighty blow.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of that thing, right? So
Yeah.
it forced, it just made it more viable to pick some of the other skills. You saw some more of these skills, so it made the game a bit more different than what you used to. That's all, right? So some people argue that is what they want to build in a rule set, right? By limiting 4 skills. Instead of doing limit to 4 skills, you should actually do a cheaper pricing for the different skills, so you'll
Yeah.
actually see them.
But also, if you stop stacking and you give people like Underworld have so limited options in terms of who they put skills on, then eventually people are going to give them some creative choices. They're going to put 2 heads on some goblins or horns on a goblin. They're going to try something on I mean, they're not going to put a skill on a snotling unless they're forced to, because they're not crazy. But you are going to get some more creative options if you allow people slightly more room within the spool pack. I don't understand anyone that thinks you do that by as you said, by taking options away, you'll force creativity. No, you'll force grumpiness and much more of a regression to the absolute min-max. I think in more generousness lies the future. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's different taxes. Perhaps if I was paying 40 points for block and 10 points for armbar, I would have 3 armbars. It's a bad example,
Maybe not
but
armbar, but
yeah, but
something.
perhaps if I could have 2 stand firm for the price of 1 guard,
Yeah,
then perhaps I'd be having a lot more stand firm on a dwarf team. So
definitely.
there may be something there, definitely. Who knows? Perhaps when the first people that talked about all teams viable or all tiers viable, I think people thought they were crazy. So here we are. That now seems to be the standard way of doing it. Now, just before we wrap up, because we have had an hour and a half nearly, and I think that's a long time for a podcast. We did have some new stars released recently. So as well as which we haven't talked about. Let's just briefly do. What do we think of gnomes? Are we fans other than wearing their stupid hats? Like I said, I don't like them, but I like they seem to fit within the meta without scaring people. So I liked that about them. Any views on gnomes around the table?
They're still stunties. They still die. You still pressure them, remove them, and so they're not problematic at the beginning of the game when they have a full team. They're strong, but by the end, they're like any other stunty. You get them down, and there's not much left.
Olivier, did gnomes interest you? Are you a stunty player ever?
Yeah, I love. I'm a halfling player, and I love them. But I didn't try gnomes at the moment. I have some close friends, Zaiko, which has the French coach, who played them in league this year, and he had a really bad year, like a 1-1-6, I think, into 8 games. So it's really a lot of enjoyment for me to joke about him. But I I I love the design of the team, and I really agree with what you said about them. So maybe one time I will let myself try the gnomes too.
I would say get yourself Rumbelow sheepskin or whatever it's called, and put
Oh.
that with your gnomes, and you'll find that doubles up really nicely. They look really good. Strider, you're obviously a gnome man, aren't you? I mean, you're
Yeah.
Swiss.
I mean, I'm more an ogre guy, right? So, but
You are.
I like the I mean any stunty, right? I like it because if you play with less experienced players, you want to have a team that you can pick where you have, you know, give him a reasonable chance to win the game, and you can still win if you roll a bit lucky, but it just evens out the odds a bit, and it makes it more fun for both players because you just know it's fun stuff, but you lose sometimes, and the other guy has some chances to win. That if you just play your power race, it's just either you win and
Mm.
then you're kind of happy because you won, or you lose and then
I mean, that should be the case.
so
That was the case, but I mean, I would have told anyone that in terms of who coaches ogres the best in the world, I would have said Strider does. But increasingly, stars are just there. Stunties are just there to allow stars on the pitch, aren't they?
that's the competitive mindset, right? So if you want to, you can abuse them to just carry some of these stars. That's why we ban them. If you want to just play them naked, then they're a real challenge, and that's how they should be used.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
quite like the idea that we have an award for best stunty player because some coaches have chosen to bring a race that is going to be harder, not
yeah,
because they're going to get Griff. I don't accept that.
yeah,
That's coaching
yeah,
stunties to me. That's coaching Griff, and I don't think you should be eligible for a stunty award. But anyway, that's my take on the stunties. What about the Chorfs and the changes there? Are we a big fire-breathing fan? Are we desperate to get hold of some AV10 plus? Nothing can change it. No tackle dwarves. Drakenspear, you looked dark and shook your head. Are you not a fan? I mean, again, they've come in and not
No, I
upset the
mean,
meta. They're not coming in overpowered. I think we can all agree that.
definitely. Yeah, I think in general, you're right, the agility matchup's harder for them. That was one of their strengths was, as you're saying, control, being a gatekeeper on agility teams, having that 6 tackle. So they're weaker in that matchup. Then you look in the Bass matchup, sure, Ironheart's good and will keep those guys around a little bit more on those edge rolls, but in general, losing to block, you need to drop them a couple tiers to kind of get them back into a kind of an equal footing with other bash teams, I think. So you look at it, I mean, they're weaker against agility teams. They're kind of weaker against bash teams in general. So you're in a situation where I think the team is just in general weaker. And the fire breathing situationally will be good. Again, it seems like as a design choice, giving the stab, giving the fire breathing is your replacement for giving them tackle. It's just not a replacement for tackle.
Yeah. It's
It'll
fun, but
situationally become interesting.
really,
Yeah.
really
You
shit.
got two big uns tagging you.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe you fire breathe one. That's the kind of situation where it's useful.
absolutely. I think that's the niche I've seen for it. People talk about taking Blodge down with it and things. Yeah, sort of. I think there's so many Strength 4 teams around now. That those flame breathers might really often find themselves marking a Chaos Warrior, a Bloater, one of the Amazon Strength 4s, one of the Norse Strength 4s. I mean, you name it now, they've all got Strength 4 apart from Dwarf teams. So it's being able to do an equivalent of a one die block there. It's still the same odds as Strength 3 against Strength 4. So if you're outpowered, I think then flame breathing might be the time, as well as, of course, on the occasional blodger. But it's a terrible skill, isn't it? We'll go to Strider next. We'll come to Olivier last this time. What did you make of the Chorf, Strider? Are you tempted?
Yeah, shit in Nav, shit in League. Yeah, never gonna play them.
It's a shame I've got a beautiful Chorf team. Absolutely beautiful painted Chorf team. But I'm struggling to... Not only can I not find any follow-up questions, I can't really disagree with what you've said there. Olivier, help me out. They can't just be shit in NAF and shit in League, can they?
I'm really curious about this new skill. But I'm an elf player, a vampire player, a scaven player. But actually, I'm working on myself. But I can't express myself about the chorfs. It will be terrible, and all the all what I can hear about them was it's not good. So I'm curious, and but I'm not. Maybe I think one time. All the 2 or 3 years, I have a one time where I say I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to a tabletop tournament with some big roster like a Chaos Pact or Dwarfs or something like this, and then I finish the tournament with a 2-1-2 or 1-3-0 for 1-3-1, and I'm like, okay, I'm going back to what I know.
I'm never doing that again. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's one time. Last time was 3 years ago, so maybe better. I'm not sure I'm doing it right now.
There you are. You've heard it here first. If you really want to see Olivier suffer, invite him to a tournament and make him coach a bash team, and you'll get some nice, easy wins.
No.
Um,
Yeah.
you wouldn't, or he
No.
won't come. More likely, he just won't come. I think what they've done to the Chorfs is horrific. I think they are. It's great that they didn't come in overpowered. Don't get me wrong. I really want that. I want more races. I want them to not be overpowered when they arrive out the box. I'm not sure I want them this underpowered either. I mean, I think they're going to be really low tier 2. I think they're going to be sort of Black Orc equivalent. I think they're that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know,
bad.
that bad. Bad as Black Orcs, who urgently need a bit of love too, in my mind. I don't know what that is, but I think they're just a little too underpowered. Really interesting though, and I'd much rather that than they came in overpowered, and we had to yet again cope with another overpowered team that everyone is coaching and everyone is painting all at the same time. Is there any innovation? Anything brand new? It's the final question, so also take this as is there anything we haven't spoken about that we want to? Before we do, I was going to do it, so let's briefly cut to those as I have them up ready. We have, if I pull up this screen and move it across, we've seen some new stars that are coming out in the Almanac. One of them is Maple Highgrove, coming in with Movement 3, Strength 5, Agility 5+, Passing 5+, AV 11+. So it's a Strength 5 Treeman Mummy hybrid sort of thing. Comes with Brawler, Grab, Loner 4+, Mighty Blow, Stand Firm, Tentacles, and Thick Skull. And a special rule of once per half they can do a block 2 spaces away. As part of a block but not part of a blitz. But it presumably can use grab, so you can either use that to push it further away or grab it further into your tentacles. It's only 210k. Gentlemen, I guess the question I'm going to ask you first is, how long until it's a megastar in your opinion? And is it as good as I think it is? Because I think that's going to be incredible at 210.
I think you'll see most people put it in Megastar very quickly. It's not, like a Griff or a Morg by any means, but there's certainly lots of interesting plays you can do for chain push and stuff like that. A lot of people talk about pulling it towards you, but you can even push something 3 squares away from you, right? Which just adds to chain pushes. So it's it's a strong piece. Again, the elves is probably not the strongest on, but you can definitely see the 1-turn possibilities on it. But North and all these other teams, 210 is it better than Zug? Probably.
But and it's cheaper, slightly cheaper. I can see it on dwarfs, for example, where if I want to grab a piece and pull it into me, I've got that option. And then I can kill it with my dwarves because the tentacles will hold it there. If I want to use my Slayer, I can use my special viney grab 2 spaces away to push something even nearer the sideline, and then I can Slayer it over the edge. So the sidelines are even more dangerous. You now can't be within 3 spaces of it, or I can do horrible things to you. And of course it can break cages. I can push things into cages, I can push things out of cages, I can grab things in the middle of cages. So I just think there's an enormous amount of good things that we can see there. Olivier, are you impressed with the new star?
No, it's a really curious and interesting mechanic, but for me, it's not going to be a megastar. It's a 210. It can be you can play it with a halfling or something like this, but I think it's with the gnomes, but I think it's too hard to take in a good team, and to you have only 3 of movements. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't.
No take root, no stand-up
I don't buy.
rolls.
No, I don't buy it.
Okay, Strider, split the room.
Yeah, I put it in my Wood Elf team. I think it's awesome.
Okay.
I mean, no root, no stand-up roll, right? Grab already for
200.
the 1
Where you?
turn. You have tentacles and stand firm in combination. All this, I mean, I'll drop. I don't know. I'll drop a catcher or whatever, and the reroll and replace the tree.
I think it's a beast of a player. I mean, we will see. We will see it around in 25, I'm
Yeah,
sure, and let's see what people make of it.
to be tested, right? But
To be
not if you have to
tested,
pay skill points, right? Then it's not
for
gonna be
sure. The other
effective.
one
Just
is
free
just as
roll.
interesting. Very cheap, Swift Vine Glimmer Shard. A Spite. I'm sure they mean Sprite. Coming in at 110k with movement 7, strength only 2, agility is only 3 plus, passing's 5 plus, AV is 7 plus. This is weak, it's not strong. It's like a stunty because it's a stunty. It comes with disturbing presence, fend, loner 4 plus, sidestep, stab, and stunty. Notably missing from that list as a stunty is dodge. Yeah, it's a stunty without dodge, but it does come with
What?
stab, and its special is insane. Once a half, so long as they're standing at the side of their activation, Swiftbind can place herself adjacent to a standing opposition player within 3 squares of her. Now, I think the wording of that means she can move to anywhere adjacent to a player 3 squares away from her, meaning she can actually teleport 4 squares, and immediately makes a stab action, which of course stab actions, while they can fail to break armor, they do nothing to you if they fail, so it cannot go wrong for her. She then instantly teleports another 3 squares to any unoccupied space. Is that insanely good, or insanely niche, or just insane? What do we make of Swift-Vine Glimmer Shield? Let's start with Strider this time. Let him be wise first rather than last.
It's fine. I think it sometimes works. It usually doesn't work. If you stab and you fail, then you're dead. Oops. It's okay. It's fine. Fun thing to play in a one-off game or
Doesn't
so.
worry you
So
if you
yeah,
were
it's
lining
good.
up against it?
Nah.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I think it's all right. I'm sure someone will find a way to abuse it that will horrify me, but at the moment I'm not sure I see it. Olivier, does this one interest you at all?
Yeah, I have a dream. You're like six or seven Ks of the touchdown line.
Yep,
You teleport yourself in the cage,
yep,
tap the ball carrier,
yep.
get the ball, and then teleport on the touchdown. And it's like, wow, what a
Yeah,
touchdown!
that
And
would be incredible.
it's beautiful.
But if you
So
didn't, if you were trying to do it and just score, and someone had to hand off to you, that's a 3+. And then, as you said, if the timing's right, it's an automatic touchdown, isn't it?
yeah,
Because as I said, stab can't go wrong. So you're
yeah,
guaranteed to
yeah,
make
yeah.
both of those teleports.
Why not? When you are tactic, wow.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
handoff that
she
three
has some
plus
uses, but
with
I think they're
loner. Do
so
that
niche.
handoff. Yeah.
Yeah, like I
Do
said,
that
3+ with
handoff.
no reroll on the handoff, and she's a loner 4+. It's risky. It's risky. Drakenspear, what do you make of the new sprite?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. It's easy to kill. So many of these things, right? Like you need to have good ball recovery
They
as
say
well,
that of
right?
the
It's not
frog
enough to
once you
pop the
wizard it.
ball out.
I've never managed to kill one. They always just stun.
Mhm.
Every time.
Yeah, I mean, you teleport in the cage, have the ball out. Like unless you're getting that ball, it's not even that worth it. You can't move after you do a stab.
No.
This breaks that by moving 3 squares, but I would say you couldn't move after that. I mean, if you could move after that, that'd be more interesting with these things because you could go really far. But yeah, it's situationally good at best.
So yes, I wait to see how people abuse that because people will. But I think the tree of the two is the one that terrifies me. I think that's the one that I don't really want to see opposite me on any field. And I think at 210 coming in cheaper than Zerg, cheaper than Zara, I think we'd see it a lot in NAF builds if things aren't done to stop that. But then of course that's what's happening currently with my lovely Hathark, who's come back with defensive, which we talked about, and yet it's Zarg that's banned for the next Euro Bowl because that makes perfect sense. Right, gentlemen, it is time we wrapped up. That's been plenty of podcasting for tonight. It is Christmas. Thank you very much for joining me. That was our review of 2024 in Blood Bowl and of your own big years. Let me go back to that. A huge congratulations to all three of you on your achievements. Let the community herald you as the greatest amongst us, and therefore truly the greatest of humanity. Because what better test of your human skills, your EP-ness, than your ability to play Blood Bowl in whatever format it comes on. Whether it's Fumble or Blood Bowl 3 or Tabletop or just in your own head. If you're good at Blood Bowl, then you're all right with me. Now, as we wrap up, I'm going to give you one chance to say anything we haven't covered, any final message to the Blood Bowl Massif as we say goodbye to 2024. All right, let's start with Drakenspear then. As you all come tumbling in at once, I'll take control, like a teacher in a playground.
No, thanks for having me, and thanks, congratulations.
Pleasure.
Just look forward to again growing the community for the coming year, and I hope everyone looks to the same thing. The more people we have playing Blood Bowl in its various forms, and better it'll be for everyone.
Olivier, as you say goodbye to Tabletop for 6 months, as your toxic wife-to-be forbids you from playing Blood Bowl, what message do you have to your legion of fans?
Thank you, PurpleChest, for the invitation, and can't wait to be back on the field. And never blame the dice, never.
Lovely to have you, and perhaps when you come back, we'll do an episode. How does it feel to come back to Blood Bowl after a break? That might be an interesting subject. So perhaps we will talk again, my friend. And Alex, always love to have you on. A wise man, and only about 10% as nice as everyone thinks you are. Any message you want to give the world of Blood Bowl, sat atop your pile of German World War II gold?
Be nice to each other, right? Whether it's in the forums, whether it's over the board,
Yeah.
whether it's, competing for a captain spot or a Euroball spot, right? It's everybody's hobbies. Everybody wants to have fun. So try to be nice to each other so everybody can enjoy the game. And then I think that's the main rule, the only real rule that needs to be adhered from by everybody, and then everybody can have a good time.
Absolutely. It's a game that breaks people, and we all know that. We've all been there. It tilts you. It's all there, and it all goes wrong on that 1-2, and it really shouldn't. And when someone's having that bad day, just be nice to them, because next time it might be you. I think at this time of year it's particularly important. I often say this at this time of year. Those that know me or have heard my work in the past will hear me at Christmas always remind you. It's a brutal time of year for some people out there. So it's an extra good time for Strider to remind us all to be nice to each other. I lost a couple of friends at Christmas who just decided it was their moment to say, I can't do this anymore, I can't carry on. So outside of Blood Bowl or inside of Blood Bowl, find a friend of yours that you think might not have loads of people coming around this Christmas. Drop them a text, give them a call, ask how they are. I guarantee you'll feel good about doing that, and then they will too. Even if it's really obvious while you're doing it, people just love that other people reach out and say, I care about you, and I want you to know that you shouldn't be alone at Christmas. Blood Bowl is all about the community. We've said that all night. People have all been talking about how good it is having others coming in, and growing our community is what we all want to try and do. It's why I'm in podcasting. It's why I'm in Blood Bowl. Is the people I meet and the fun I have and the community we have here is being so nice and so strong. So be nice to someone. Find someone deliberately that you can be nice to at Christmas that you think might need it. And I guarantee that's a lovely way to try and live your life. The only other thing I want to say, and I've kept it to the very end because I don't want it to be too many people to know, but the next episode will be only a week from now. I will drop adverts before it. And I'm going to bring together 3 other podcasters, and we're going to talk about the slew, the deluge, the flood of podcasting that there is in Blood Bowl. And that would be utterly pointless without the sort of guest list I've invited. So as well as No Bribe Foul and Kilowoggy, both notable podcasters from the Murica side of the pond, I have secured Bonehead Ben from the Bonehead podcast, who'll be joining me live in a week's time, and we're going to spend a couple of hours talking about Blood Bowl. I think that's going to be a fantastic episode. I'm really looking forward to it. But if my good friends could wave and say good night to everybody, that was One World, One Blood Bowl number 56, 2024. What a big year for Blood Bowl. I will see you one more time before the new year. I hope you're looking forward to that as much as I am. Thank you, everybody, and night-night. Okay, that was that done.